Greetings, dear friends. Your support is our strength. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. This helps the growth of our channel. Write comments, because feedback is very valuable to us. And now to the most relevant world news. Let's go. The head of Ukraine's main intelligence directorate, Budanov, suggests blowing up Ukrainian nuclear power plants in case of defeat. Arestovich's statement and the US reaction. Putin prayed for Trump after his assassination attempt. Candid days of US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. The Syrian leader demands the extradition of Bashar al-Assad. A new turn in international politics. The Russian world without borders. Vladislav Surkov on the expansion of Russia and the role of the tsar. Hello friends, this is Channel 8 and once again your host Sergei Ruskik. Let's talk about the main issues. The head of the main intelligence directorate of Ukraine, Budanov, proposed blowing up Ukrainian NPPs in case of defeat. Arestovich's statement and the US reaction. In recent days, a topic has resurfaced in the information space that causes concern among both experts and the international community. Former advisor to the office of the President of Ukraine, Alexei Arestovich, who has been listed among terrorists and extremists, stated that the head of the main intelligence directorate of Ukraine, Kirill Budanov, who is also listed among terrorists and extremists, proposes to blow up all Ukrainian nuclear power plants in the event of the country's defeat in the conflict. According to Arestovich, this is precisely one of the reasons why the United States is eager to take control of Ukrainian nuclear facilities. They perceive us as a monkey with a grenade and simply want to take control of the dangerous toys. They are aware of our plans to blow up all nuclear power plants if Ukraine starts losing. Budanov was toying with this idea a year and a half ago. Like, we'll blow up everything, all Russian facilities we can reach and all of ours, so that no one gets them. On the principle of, we'll die, but we'll take everyone with us. Arestovich stated. This statement caused a wide resonance, as it concerns a potential environmental disaster that could affect not only Ukraine, but all of Europe. Ukraine is home to several large nuclear power plants, including the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, which is currently in an active combat zone, and it legally went to Russia. The explosion of such facilities could lead to radioactive contamination comparable to the consequences of the Chernobyl disaster, if not worse. Arestovich now also notes that such plans have become one of the reasons why the United States of America and its allies are striving to strengthen control over Ukraine's nuclear infrastructure. According to him, Western partners perceive such ideas as extremely dangerous and unpredictable, which could undermine trust in Ukraine as a responsible member of the international community. However, it is worth noting that there has been no official confirmation of these plans from the main intelligence directorate of Ukraine or other state structures so far. Kirill Budanov, known for his tough stance towards Russia, and essentially being an international terrorist in his own right. And not just a scoundrel, colloquially referred to as a mama's boy, he has repeatedly stated Ukraine's readiness to use any means to defend its territory. And this involved sabotage actions on critical infrastructure facilities. Experts note that such statements, even if unconfirmed, can be used by the Russian side to discredit Ukraine on the international stage. Moreover, they raise very important questions about nuclear safety in the context of military conflict. Already, the Zaporizhzhia NPP, the largest in Europe, is under very close scrutiny by the IAEA, which has repeatedly called for the creation of a demilitarized zone around this plant. The issue of control over Ukrainian nuclear power plants remains very acute. On one hand, Ukraine seeks to maintain sovereignty over its facilities, while on the other, the international community demands safety guarantees, including for itself. In the context of the ongoing conflict, any provocation or mistake could lead to catastrophic consequences. It turns out Putin prayed for Trump after the assassination attempt. A revelation by the US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. In the world of politics, where every word and gesture conceals subtle diplomatic games, sometimes events occur that go beyond the usual protocols. One such moment was the revelation by Steve Witkoff, the Special Envoy of US President Donald Trump, in an interview with Tucker Carlson. Witkoff spoke about the second meeting with Vladimir Putin, which took place on March 13th, and shared unexpected details that revealed the personal side of the relationship between the leaders of the two countries. According to Witkoff, during this meeting, Vladimir Putin gave Donald Trump an unusual gift: a portrait of the American president painted by a famous Russian artist. However, the most touching moment was the Russian leader's confession. Putin revealed that after the assassination attempt on Trump, he went to church and prayed for his health. "I conveyed this message to President Trump," said Witkoff. He was clearly very moved. It was a sincere gesture that showed there is room for human feelings beyond the politics of confrontation. This statement caused a wide resonance, as it highlights the complexity and multifaceted nature of the relations between Russia and the USA. Despite constant tensions and mutual accusations, such moments remind us that the leaders of countries remain, above all, human beings capable of emotions and compassion. The assassination attempt on Donald Trump, which Putin mentioned, became one of the most high-profile events in American politics in recent years. Although the details of the incident remain classified, the very fact that the Russian president reacted so sharply to this event and in such a personal manner speaks volumes. Perhaps it was a gesture of goodwill, an attempt to establish dialogue in a situation where official communication channels between the countries remain very strained. However, experts warn that such revelations may be perceived ambiguously. In a situation where relations between Moscow and Washington remain extremely complex and tense, any gesture, even a sincere one, can be interpreted as part of a political game, and a multi-step one at that. Nevertheless, Witkoff emphasized that Trump perceived Putin's words as a sign of respect and simple human involvement. This episode also raises the question of the role of personal relationships in global politics. In an era when diplomacy is increasingly conducted through public statements and sanctions, such moments remind us of the importance of personal contact and mutual understanding between leaders of different countries. The new Syrian leader demands the extradition of Bashar al-Assad. A new turn in international politics. Syria, a country that has been at the epicenter of military conflict and political upheaval for over 10 years, is once again in the spotlight of international public attention. This time, the reason for discussion was the statement by the new Syrian leader and international terrorist Ahmed al-Shara, who demanded that Russian President Vladimir Putin extradite the former head of Syria, Bashar al-Assad. According to al-Shara, Assad must stand trial in Damascus for crimes committed during the civil war. This demand was made against the backdrop of Syria's ongoing efforts to regain control over its territory and stabilize the political situation in the country. Bashar al-Assad, who had been in power since 2000, was forced to leave the country after mass protests began in 2011, escalating into a full-scale armed conflict, specifically the civil war. Since then, he has been in Russia, which granted him political asylum. At the moment, and Ahmed al-Shara, who came to power after a complex transitional period and was involved in the mass killings of Alawites and Christians in Syria, stated that a trial for Assad is necessary for restoring justice and reconciliation in the country. Bashar, Assad must answer for his actions before the people in Syria. We demand that Russia fulfill its international obligations and extradite him for trial in Damascus, said al-Shara in his address. It's interesting, who is he to demand anything from Putin? This statement elicited a mixed reaction both within Syria and beyond. On one hand, many Syrians, especially those who suffered from Assad's regime, support the idea of a trial for the former leader. On the other hand, the new power in Syria came to be amidst mass torture and executions, and it is not for them to judge. Russia, which has played a key role in the Syrian conflict since 2015, has repeatedly stated its support for Syria's sovereignty and the need for a political resolution to the crisis. However, the extradition of Bashar Assad could be perceived as a step that would undermine Moscow's position in the region and in the world as a whole. Moreover, it could create a dangerous precedent for other leaders currently under Russia's protection. The Russian World Without Borders, Vladislav Surkov on the expansion of Russia and the role of the Tsar in it. Vladislav Surkov, former aide to Russian President Vladimir Putin and one of the main ideologists of modern Russian politics, has once again drawn attention with his sharp statements. In an interview with the French publication L'Express, Surkov stated that Russia will expand in all directions, as far as God wills. His words caused a wide resonance, as they not only emphasized Moscow's expansionist ambitions, but also revealed the philosophy of the so-called Russian world. The Russian world has no borders. The Russian world is everywhere there is Russian influence in one form or another. Cultural, informational, military, economic, ideological, humanitarian, stated Surkov. According to him, Russia will extend its influence as much as possible. But it is important not to get carried away and not to take on too big a piece. These words sound like a direct continuation of the ideology that underpins Russia's foreign policy in recent years. The concept of the Russian world has long been used to justify Moscow's actions on the international stage, including the return of Crimea in 2014 and the support of the Russian-speaking population in Ukraine and other countries. However, Surkov went even further, stating that the expansion of Russia is not just a political process, but something sanctioned. from above. Particular attention in the interview was drawn to Surkov's words about the necessity of a czar for Russia. We need a czar. Periods without a czar always end in catastrophe for us, he explained. This statement can be seen as a hint at the current political system of Russia, where Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin plays the role of an irreplaceable leader, as well as a reference to the country's historical traditions, where strong centralized power has always been considered a guarantee of great stability. Experts, however, note that Surkov's words reflect a deeply ingrained belief within the Russian elite, a belief in Russia's special mission on the world stage. However, such statements may cause concern among neighboring countries and the international community, which has long expressed apprehension about Moscow's expansionist policies, especially against the backdrop of the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, where Russia actively uses both military and soft power to advance its national interests. The reaction to Surkov's interview was mixed. In Russia, his words may be perceived as a confirmation of the course towards strengthening the country's sovereignty and expanding its influence in the world. However, in the West, such statements are likely to heighten the significant concerns of Western elites regarding further destabilization in the region. Already, many countries in the CIS view Russia as a threat, and Surkov's rhetoric only reinforces these concerns. I would add that one can argue with Surkov, but overall, the idea of a strong centralized power in Russia has a significant and profound meaning.